Okay, camera's on.
If you can make it in the restaurant, the way we should kind of ease the eating ourselves. I'm just going to feed the purpose. If I can do more with it, better environment, dinner service, all that.
Chastity.
Brad, can I sidebar with you in the hallway for a brief second? Yes. We're all the important businesses.
What's in the seeds? Who should take care of it? Put some in my pocket. How are you?
I usually work for it. My husband was in Boscov in November. You guys still got your council packets. My uncle died in December, and I was still here to make the council.
Okay.
Their service that day. Having issues with our family.
What happened?
It still went out.
The whole day free. Other than that, everything's gone all day yesterday. It's just a
Yeah.
it's all.
Yeah.
Okay, Fred, Dave Baxter, myself, you, and Keith.
Me too.
Is it actually your name?
Yeah.
Well, even better.
Oh, yeah, stuff there.
I know it's a
My
order
door
due for
has two
Christmas
holes
this
in
year,
it
too.
for a nail it's supposed to go.
Okay.
It's late.
This is, I think this is my uncle's. We're in like rep basketball. I don't know. So.
He only gave me like 4 or 5 teas in my life, it wasn't bad. Honest to God, it's all bad. Your dad was running with, the guy that used to be at like the coke dealer. Yeah, it was all from years. So whoever that guy was,
Bill?
he called a foul on me in high school. And he was at the other end of the court. And he didn't make it past that. And we had to go back down and lay next to me when they called the foul. We had to walk down and we left the ball that game. And he goes, why didn't you give me the ball? I go, because it'd be the first time you get down that into the court.
Some people just can't let it go.
He doesn't want to grudge us.
No, that was 35 years ago, whatever. Actually, when I said it, I'm like, that was dumb.
I sort of miss it.
And one of my old trainers is cool.
Yeah, I really enjoy that.
Bear with us 1 minute, please.
Technology issues like this.
Screen
If
light.
you had the-
Screen light.
Yeah, they had a good time. There was a bunch of, but this time it's live.
I'll remember like just this big old size
Roll it.
I'm like, this one's only 6,000, it put on 6,000.
In front of, it could be false advertising. It was like one of those signs last night. But
Wait till we come back. Maybe I should come back.
Somerset, I thought she said it was deep fried.
deep fried, so I'm not sure what shit. She's like, yeah, they could have never mind.
And usually the standards that full. It's not really the popcorn.
Yeah, I feel that too. It's a couple of days.
What I used to do. I would say my office is for the way my office works. Take a 6-hour flight out. Not sure if it takes it only meets there now.
Well, I found it.
ACK. We know.
And no one realizes how close it really is. I guess there's guys like it's further.
That's much more like from today, Monday.
He's done spring.
Yeah, then Monday we have 2 parades.
Small numbers.
Yeah, just wait, they're gonna.
That is, I asked Ellen. She's like,
Well, we can, that's the only thing really.
Right.
Yeah, you don't have a quorum. Oh, yes. Go to Smith Mountain Lake.
Virginia.
Friends of ours
In
have,
Virginia.
friends of ours have a lake house down there.
Yeah.
Smith Mountain Lake, like 6 hours. Yeah, straight down 81. It's like a 3 mile.
Yeah. That's, it's not bad.
No, yeah, it is. It's electric power.
And, it's like a awesome marsh.
Yeah, yeah. 50 times.
Yeah. Fish are 2 hours.
Yeah, it's a nice area. It's beautiful. They got a nice, they're from Adamstown. It's 4 hours from here, it's 2 hours from their house. And it's right off, I forget the exit, but it's very, to the left, it's like the country store type thing. It's got a tree made out of, to that.
Cops your request.
But we'll be around. Whenever she has a conference call at 11:30, whenever she's done with that, we're gonna go back to her car.
I gotta hang up. My head's fine. It's my liver that I gotta bring out.
Journalist.
Well, thank you all for your patience. We'll call the Economic Development Committee meeting for the month of May to order. And we do a roll call for this, I think.
Fred Levery,
Here.
Dave Boucher will be absent, Steve Brenner,
Here.
Bill James,
Here?
and Keith Garrett.
Here.
Are there any public comments?
Yes, I will make a comment. I will, I would like to speak about what has been happening for the past 15 minutes. You obviously are trying to shy away from discussing in public this matter. And this is a violation of the Sunshine Act, and you've been shushing for 15 minutes under the camera on how you can work around the law, and we've discussed, I've said before, Mr. Hartman is here for the entire borough, not just for a portion or so for some people. And we're not here to do this. This is a public meeting. There are ways under the law in which certain discussions can be held. But this is, with utmost respect, this is a disrespect to the residents and to anybody that attends this meeting. And I have utmost respect for Mr. Boscov, but asking something like this from a public meeting to be shut down, I understand you want to go into an unplanned executive session, whatever you be shushing them. So this is completely improper, and this should not happen in this borough, and it's been a staple of how this operates.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other public comments? I want to first say that Mark Radcliffe from the West Reading Community Revitalization Foundation could not be able to be with us today. Something came up late yesterday, last night, I guess. And he will be
I've already confirmed he will,
You will?
yes.
Thank you. So, is there any, we have with us today Jim Boscov and Jacob Stein from Boscov, obviously. And as a large piece of a very important bit of real estate in our community, helps pay the bills. We were anxious to entertain some comments from Jim and Jacob about their perceptions of things. And we will let them have their say first, and then move on from there. So, gentlemen.
Well, thank you. Good morning. Before I talk about the mall at all, let me just tell you as a resident of Wyomissing how glad I am to live here and what a good job this committee and other committees do. It's a great community, and I'm really delighted. Jacob and I spent, I'm happy to tell you what we know and what we do regarding the mall. I would say first of all that I guess I have to talk about the fact that we had the Easter Sunday at 9 o'clock. I got a call from my son-in-law who was on the police force saying that he wasn't working that night, but he got calls from other guys on the force that water was coming out of one of the doors. And Jacob and I went over there around 10 o'clock that night and waded through about 3 inches of water. But what was remarkable was that all the police force was there, the fire department was there, Berkshire County, I guess the fire chief was Berkshire County. The municipal water people, we shut off our water, the water was just rushing up through the floor. That didn't stop it. Municipal water came and shut down the main, and that did stop it. We had the energy company come and shut off the power to the mall. Everybody, by midnight, everything was really done. And it was really remarkable the way everybody worked together. But the good news is we got open on the second and third floor on about 1 o'clock the next day. Our folks did a good job of getting the place dried out, pulling up all the carpeting, getting the tile up, moving all the fixture. And by the next Saturday, we were in business again on the lower level. And we're renovating. We're not renovating. We're putting new carpet down and new tile down. And we'll be in the next couple of weeks. We'll be looking very good once again. But again, it was everybody working very well together. This past Sunday and Monday, Jacob and I spent the days in Las Vegas. It's a semi-annual meeting of all the mall developers, and you know, we go there looking for new locations, but also it's an opportunity to talk to our existing landlords. One of our biggest landlords is Namco, and as Namdar, the owners of the Berkshire Mall. And we can talk a little bit about what we know about their method of doing business, how we deal with it. We can talk about how some other companies deal with it. We had a chance to talk to Macy's. Macy's has hundreds of stores with it. Not hundreds, but close to it. With Namdar, and Dillard's has many stores with them as well. But let me let Jacob talk a little bit about what we know about their method of doing business.
Thank you. And as Jim said, we live down the street, little kids, and absolutely love it here. So thank you all for everything you do. Kids safely bike around town, so that's wonderful. I would say, as Jim mentioned, we met with the mall developers. And I'd say the one thing we like to clarify with members here and other communities, and they say this themselves, they are not developers. Their financial strategy is to buy these properties as inexpensively as possible. That either means at a sheriff's sale, or they buy the debt from the existing owner who's going delinquent for as little as possible. And then really the strategy from their perspective is not to be a hands-on developer, but rather to find ways to reduce expenses as much as humanly possible, have the remaining rent pay off their investment, and then essentially own the land for free. So from a financial model, it's actually pretty successful, and they do well. Unfortunately, from a retailer's perspective or a community's perspective, that unfortunately means that until that final piece of the equation occurs, it's hard for us to operate in some boroughs to be happy with the product. You see And it can lead to some challenges, if they cut expenses such as security, it dramatically increases the chances for security events to occur where there's not enough safety there. Simple things like landscaping, like plowing the parking lot so that the tenants can operate without it being covered in snow. We come here to say, we've been asked, who is the owner, and some people get very excited about what the owner's gonna do. And all we like to say is, let's explain who that owner is and what their strategy is, but really what they can do is ultimately sell it to a developer who will then do something that you would see. But until that time, it's gonna remain kind of in a slow and steady state of decline. So from our perspective, they're our biggest landlord, we have to have a wonderful relationship with them. So it's just understanding their point of view and trying to find ways to work together in between. It can be pretty challenging, as you can imagine, if we want a first-class looking shopping center, and that's not really their objective, it creates some challenging moments. But at the same time, we feel that if we can work with our borough or our communities or the counties, so at least we're all aware of one another's objectives, that usually allows that final piece of the equation to happen a little sooner than it might otherwise occur. So as you're probably hearing, there's some proposed uses for a portion of the parking lot in front of our store. Those do seem to be coming to fruition. We are, working with NAMDAR to make sure that that can happen, but that would just be one small piece of a much larger puzzle. So from my perspective, the hardest part is you look at that and say, great, this is going to start the rest of the project. That's really just a standalone piece. It may or may not start anything. What happens next may have no correlation to that whatsoever. Because it's not as if NAMDAR is doing that development and then start another development. They're selling that. What happens next is just whatever happens next. Other than that, though, we were kind of asked to come. We can answer any questions. But just want to articulate, who
Can I say that in other situations where we've seen a mall in decline, Boscov continues to do well. We're fortunate that we have, in this case, we own the real estate, even when the rest of the mall dies, we're enough of a destination that we continue to do well. And in other situations, we've seen malls decline completely, die, and then somebody comes in and reinvents it. We survive throughout the whole process, and the mall finds a new life, and it's valuable real estate, and somebody recognizes it. I think the point you make is that they're not developers, they have a financial plan that works for them. And we can talk about what some of the other municipalities have done with owners like that. We did have the good fortune of meeting two companies who really have a very different philosophy. They buy malls that are dying, and they reinvent them, and they have money behind them, and that's their business plan. That was specific.
Yeah, it's retail out of California.
And they're doing that all over the country. What was happening in Harrisburg?
So in Harrisburg, a different owner, this is in NAMDAR, but an unfortunate similar type of situation. That mall owner wasn't paying certain bills. They weren't paying their taxes, they weren't paying their water bills. And so Dauphin County was able to default that owner to then force a sale. And that, you can read the article, so that just happened. And that new ownership is now taking over with some excitement, with some plans, with some capital to actually redevelop that property. But a different situation, but it's been common that when the type of owners that buy these properties that aren't looking to develop them, don't pay certain bills, those counties then use that as a way to help.
Or they're in violation of other things.
Yep.
Or the codes, for example.
Is this like a prehistoric REIT mall?
I'm not sure who used to own it.
Outline.
Oh yeah, it's Allied, you're right.
Seems very.
It's just that new owners with a very different
Yeah.
financial philosophy.
Is their business model then not to exit the investment until they pay down the debt significantly, or what triggers their exit?
So they haven't really exited much, so it's hard to really say. They're relatively new in
They're
their
holders.
Yeah, they're relatively new to this. I'd say the last 5 years they've really come onto the scene.
And we saw a list of the malls that they own, it's grown dramatically.
Yeah.
Would you say, what, over 100?
Yeah, it's almost 200 now. They're now become the largest owner of enclosed malls in the U.S. So they raise money overseas, use that money to then buy properties. I believe the financial interest is both, the rent coming in, but also they manage it themselves. And then fast forward 10 years, you have a piece of dirt like this that'd be very valuable, and you have no basis, and it could be worth a lot. But we're in year 2 or 3 of that probably.
They haven't really exited any, so you're not sure what that time frame is.
Right. I think it's fair to say if you have a property like that, you could run it for a good 10 years before it's, truly.
That what's left of the rental income sustains it.
Right.
Are they a fairly new company?
Yes. I don't know what year they were founded, but I'd say in the last 5 years, they've really come onto the scene, if you will.
Are they doing a lot of open air conversions? It's all
They're not
heating and
doing
closing.
any they're not doing anything. They're just,
No, the other, Pacific.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, they
Yep.
do a lot of the open air conversions, right?
Correct.
And the lifestyle.
Yep, so they'll buy it and they'll invest hundreds of millions of
Yeah.
dollars to do apartments, to do hotels, to do
And then the retail.
all kinds.
buildings,
Yeah.
mixed use, and it seems, and where we see it, it seems to be working. I
That's a
guess the other thing
dramatically different side of the equation.
the only thing that would worry, one thing that worries me right now, and we've seen it in some of the malls, is if there's a lack of security, people know that, people know, find that out and take advantage of it, and then you've got a real problem. We've seen it in some other cities. We so far have been pretty isolated from that, or insulated from that. We certainly take a pretty hard line in terms of security at the Berkshire Mall. Not everybody does, and I think that that's one area of concern.
Yeah, I would just highlight the most directly negative aspect of all this is that means the value of that parcel declines, which means the taxable, rate declines. So from a community perspective, that's always what we feel the most is these typically were the largest,
Generators of revenue.
yeah, and they've, not just here, all over, the valuations have dropped dramatically, and therefore the taxable income drops with it.
So over the course of the years, a lot has gone on over at the mall. I might have missed a step in between. There were some discussions about some pad spaces being developed 10 years ago. That never happened. I think you just mentioned recently, the last few minutes, that there were a couple of things going on. I might have missed that meeting. Could you tell us what is going on there?
So I don't think I'm at liberty to say the names of the tenants,
Okay,
I'm not
no,
the
that's
owner,
all
but they are talking as far as they're telling us. And again, I don't see any agreements, so I'll tell you what they tell me, whether it's true or not, I don't know 100%. But it sounds like there are 2 different standalone operators, one being a gas station, one being a bank, that would go in the portion of quadrant of the parking lot along State Hill Road, where the old building sits that's vacated.
The old mobile station.
Yep.
So
And
we
then,
just put the pumps back in from 20 years ago and start over again?
yeah, pretty much. With a newer, as you'd see everywhere else, a newer type of operator. That's what we believe is gonna be the first kind of shoot of fall. So the good news there is you'd see some redevelopment. And in my personal view, the bad news is that means there's a cash payment to Namdar, which just allows
Slows
this
things down.
process to keep going.
So it's
So
a tenant, not a subdivision.
Now, they would be proposing to parcel that piece off and sell it.
Oh.
Now, they would have to obviously work,
Yes.
But
Just repeat.
that's their mode. Their mode is to sell piece by piece by piece by
Yeah.
piece. My understanding is their interest is not in selling the whole package.
correct.
So the whole
People who-
Boscov parcel is from the front of your store forward to Stateville Road?
My belief, the whole mall is one big parcel right
Correct.
now. And their mode right now would be to take that front middle corner, parcel it off, here's the whole mall, take this and sell this.
I thought you said you owned the mall.
We
Um,
own, we
so
own
we
a
don't.
store.
We're a lease tenant there, sorry.
My
Oh, all right,
mistake.
okay, all right.
My-
Big difference.
We have 50 of them, it gets, so in that scenario, we
That's all right.
lease,
That'd be great if you did.
yeah.
So what can we do to help?
So we more just want to be transparent with, the situation, just so you at least know what the strategy is.
More frequent inspections? Or
So
not being as nice when you find violations?
I was actually gonna touch on that. We've been hammering them. I was in there with fire marshal, codes, and Michelle Cobb from the Department of Ag and Food Safety Inspector about a month ago. shut down 3 of the restaurants up in the food court. Do not eat there. The fire marshal and I were in again last, I think it was Thursday, to inspect 2 new tenants that were coming in. So anytime a new tenant moves in that's not requiring a building permit, we go in and do a certificate of occupancy inspection, checking for fire code issues. The predominant issue we find almost every time is Robert Hart knows clearly what is required of the mall to provide to a tenant in terms of emergency exit signs, fire extinguishers, clearance, sprinkler heads. None of that is being provided up front. They're passing that all on to the tenant, which in my conversations with Joe Nosti from Allied, when they owned it, the lease agreements were similar, but Allied took the perspective of, at the end of the day, it's their property, their building, they wanna make sure things are being done right.
Right.
So they would do those things for the tenant. Now it seems like the tenant is basically left to hang out to dry.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've hammered Robert with the sinkholes in the parking lot. When we were over there last week, I just did a quick drive around the exit. The Bonton entrance facing Woodland, the whole one corner was filled with trash. Like somebody was almost squatting there at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Kraft, which is our code inspection agency from like a building property maintenance code perspective, they went through with the fire inspectors as well, and, you know, we went up on the roof. We went into the different fire suppression systems rooms that are, you know, throughout the mall, and all deficiencies were noted. We've stopped being nice. I mean, we've made it very clear to them that this is what our expectation is. Future inspections, if that expectation is not met, we will take all means necessary, including closing you.
Does NAMDAR have on-site management?
If you would call it that,
So
I think that's a generous description.
And are your complaints going to the on-site manager, or are they going to the headquarters?
Both.
Our experience is a lot of smiling and a lot of yes, yes, yes.
And my understanding is his hands are tied, his spending threshold is like $1,000.
Yeah.
And then he has to kick it up to corporate and their spending threshold is $2,000, and then they have to kick it up.
Yeah, so I would just say, so Robert Hart is a local, I'm not sure exactly where he lives, but local
He
resident.
lives in Wyomissing,
Yeah,
actually.
he's doing his absolute best. He's kind of the scapegoat, if you will. That, you know, he's employed by the parent to operate it, but he has very little ability to actually effectuate change.
Yeah.
So I don't think anything you're doing is wrong, whether it's with NAMDAR or any number of other investors that have this kind of strategy. That unless we, Boscov's, the other tenants, yourselves, do everything we can to make sure it's operated in a first-class manner, otherwise it won't. But I would just make sure we don't necessarily get angry at the gentleman here named Robert or somewhere else.
Yeah, Robert was there Easter Sunday night, trying to help us to the extent that he could.
Is he he's not the Robert Hart of Cravco,
I don't believe so.
is that guy runs?
He
No.
This is
A local.
It's not a Robert Hart.
Yeah.
He was an employee of Allied. He was actually their head of maintenance.
Okay.
And then Kayla became Joe, and then
Okay.
Kayla left, and Robert became Kayla and Joe.
Got it. Yeah, to Robert's credit, so when we were calling people, by the way, everyone's sound asleep, this was Easter Sunday, you know, he got out of bed with his, you know, I think he's a 1-year-old and showed up on the property, and it was 25 degrees out, and
He was in a t-shirt.
in a t-shirt, you know, doing everything he could to help us, so, I like him, he means well, he's.
But his hands are tied.
Yeah.
And you're right, every major decision is made by one guy, and he'll smile and say yes, and
So happened to notice, on the, Woodland roadside,
There's another
Tom
thing.
North, the facade is gone. You can see, you look to the right, okay, facing where the mall mobile station was, up the roof line, the facade is missing, and all you see is concrete block now.
When you say Pomeroy's, do you mean what I knew as Bonton?
Bonton.
Yeah.
Sorry, dating myself, Lip Brothers, you know, let's go back to Lip Brothers.
Do you remember Woolworths on that side?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I'll have them look at it.
But as far as, you know, you mentioned, Jim, the security, I know our police department has directed patrols walking inside the mall. Of course, they can't be there all the time, to help, but at least there's an appearance, and
Yeah.
there's usually always a patrol car somewhere in that parking lot, driving around.
Yeah, I happen to be a big fan of the Wilmington Police Department. But I know they get called to the Walmart all the time, and it's difficult, there's tough stuff happening there. I wanna just make sure that doesn't happen at Berkshire.
But so many times you look at the police blotter and the merchant doesn't want the person to be arrested.
Doesn't want the person to be,
Arrested, and it's, or cited, and it seems to me that unless the merchants start enforcing it more strictly, it hurts everybody.
yeah, and the word gets out. It's okay to go there because you won't, even if you get caught, you're not gonna get it.
Well, there's a store in the mall that before the police are called, if they catch somebody, they have to notify their corporate offices and get permission
To call the police.
to call the police, and that usually takes like a week before it's, so,
So, Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, but the mall, the whole parcel, the one parcel, its mechanicals are one electrical, everything's running through the same electric.
Your
You know
major
me,
utilities
I'm gonna
coming,
oversimplify this.
yeah,
but-
your major utilities, water, sewer, electric coming in are one main, one service connection that runs throughout the property.
So if, and I don't know how the old parcel, the old mobile station worked, but if they're gonna own, if this happens and someone owns a portion of that parcel, how does that affect change with the electrical grid, the sewer grid, all that kind of stuff?
Keep in mind, for them to subdivide, they have to come to us.
Right,
So that would all be part
but
of,
they would then.
they would have to show how a separate service would be connected to that standalone parcel for water, for sewer, for electric, for any utility that's servicing it.
If what we heard was correct, that was the reason why the person that was interested in the Sears Auto Center backed out, because the cost was prohibited to bring in new utilities, sewer hookup, electric and so on. I mean, there was a car dealership that was interested in that parcel, and it didn't pan out.
Well, you should say the portion of that parcel, because currently it's still.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
just the portion of the Sears Auto Center
Yeah.
was what they were interested in.
So I have a question, Jake. If you have these bad things go on, is that not helpful to you, or do they have to be inside the mall tenants for that, for you to see a benefit increase in business? Because you're kind of a standalone, people go to Boscov's and you go to, you know,
I'd say it's hard to answer it concretely if it does help or hurt. We don't necessarily notice it one way or the other. We think it's probably good for the overall, generally speaking, if it's what I would call a developer, it'd be a good thing to be a catalyst.
Something like Granite Run, for example.
Yeah, so in media PA, Granite Run, it was an enclosed mall that was failed.
right.
And in that scenario, it was a long phasing project, but as soon as they started one piece of it, it created excitement that led to then the apartment being built, that led to the mall then being rebuilt, so that was a tremendous catalyst. And throughout the entirety of that redevelopment, it absolutely helped us because it revived the property.
So as long as nothing happens bad to you guys, you're fine.
We're
just
okay,
do
yeah.
what you do.
Let me say this, these are our landlords, we've got to maintain a good working relationship, and we're trying to do that. But we know, and they know what their mode is collect the rent, eliminate expenses, let the thing die over a period of time, sell off pieces if they can, and we think the end game is to turn it back to the bank at some point, to sell the land or even turn it back to the bank at some point. It's a long, slow, sad process, we're gonna be okay. As a member of the community, I'm not happy with it, it's not good for the community, I know that. I would stress that.
Over the years, we've been told that the department stores, plural, had control over parking and could dictate what could or couldn't happen. As the last man standing, are you still in that position? Now it's about Sears and Bontemps, you've got unique control over it.
So I'd say the best analogy, you think of a Walmart, open air shopping center. If that landlord is able to build a Walmart, they then give Walmart control of the parking lot because Walmart doesn't want to open and have something block the visibility or access to their store. Same exact situation with malls when they were built. If they, got the anchor in exchange, the anchor said, you need to promise me that you're not gonna then, tear up the parking lot where people see and access my store. So different terminology is used, but in short, yes, all the anchors and us being the last one still have that control, if you will, of the parking lots, so that, it doesn't turn into a, storage facility. And then us say, oh my God, why did we invest, $20 million in a location that turned out to be a storage facility?
So how would that impact the gas station? Would that bother you or help you?
It all depends, once we see the final plans, how's the circulation, how's the signage. In some scenarios, hey, that's wonderful, absolutely, please proceed. Or sometimes it's, okay, we need to reroute a road, we need to reroute a sign, we might need X, Y, and Z. I would say it all depends, every situation is different. But look, they're all over, so we'd like to, as Jim said, work with our mall owners, because if we don't, it doesn't help anyone. So the goal is to work with them over time so that we can.
So not to be unreasonable with them in the hopes that they'll be reasonable with us.
What's your estimate of how, to what extent it's a full mall, speak, 50% full, 40%?
I'd say at some point it's zero, which is a question of what year you're asking the question. It's just that, malls are extremely capital intensive. They require a lot of investment, a lot of money to operate and maintain. And if you don't have someone doing that, it unfortunately has no direction but down.
Would you be willing to take a moment and look at your crystal ball as to, given the challenges of Walmart and Amazon and all that, what's the future of retail?
Now, wait a second. I think that there is a social aspect of shopping. I think people like to shop with their friends and their family. I think that there's certain things that are natural for buying things online. We have a robust website. There are things that I shop for online that are commodities. But I think that the ability to try on a suit or a dress or feel the fabric of a bedspread or a curtain, I think those are all important. So I don't believe that that's ever going to go away. I think retailers always have to be innovative and ready to make changes to become more efficient. Technology certainly plays a part. Frankly, I think a lot of our success has to do with people and not technology. The fact that you can go into a Boscov's and find a person to help you, who cares about you and is going to help solve a problem. When I go into some department stores, Albert and I used to joke we'd run around with a shirt trying to find somebody to take our money. And that's awful. I think retailing, as long as they are efficient and innovative, will continue to survive because it's a social activity.
Yeah,
We're gonna, I joke with I meet with a group of, I go to a different store every Friday and I have an early morning meeting with coworkers. And I talk about the fact that we are the anomaly right now. We're doing well and a lot of other department stores are not doing well. We're growing, we're opening a store in West Virginia in October. And we're at this real estate show looking for the next site. But I don't kid myself, the reason that we do well, and I said, yes, we have plenty of inventory, we have a very broad assortment, we have better prices than most people. The real difference, I think, is people. I think that we have people who are there to serve, and who know people's names. I say at these meetings, how many of you know customers by names? And 75%, 80% of the people, see, that doesn't happen in other stores. So I think that as long as we do it with that kind of personal touch, we're gonna be fine.
And I would just say that the way in which people shop will change. So like the enclosed mall environment no longer seems to be the way in which people want to shop. But if you look at the open air format, between TJ Maxx, Ross, Burlington, they're opening 300 new stores a year. So it's not as if retail's dying, it's just that it's evolving. If you look at the last 2 years of earnings results, 2020 everyone shut down and people were isolated. 2021 people were allowed to go back out and they desperately wanted to go back out. Retailers made more money in 2021 and 2022 than they had in any year prior to the last 20 years. So there was this desire from humans to get back out and socialize. And brick and mortar shopping, you look at the results, what Macy's and Dillard's and Target and Walmart made in 2021, they made more in 1 year than they had, 2017, 18, 19 combined.
The other thing we should point out is, you point to some of the successful mall developers who have created lifestyle centers that have become vibrant, because now instead of just inline stores, they're lifestyle centers, they're restaurants, they're venues with golf, Top Golf, for
Yeah.
example, something we saw the other day, medical offices, college, learning institutions, they're mixed, multifamily housing. But they're taking these properties and making town centers out of them, and they become vibrant.
Yeah.
The opportunity is there, and somebody will do that at some point.
That's what I always said. I mean, I saw when the Belmont was being built
Yeah.
down on
Yeah.
30, and I think that is just an absolutely gorgeous
And look at the traffic
facility.
there.
Yes, and on there, that would fit so well,
Mhm.
you know, in the Berkshire Mall's property, and, you know,
Well, and so it's just a question of the right person buying it. Right now, the people the current owners, who are our landlords, have a different business model. And there is
How do you feel about residential as part of the mix? Like,
it doesn't hurt us.
you take
It
the
doesn't- as long as-
Bonton site, you go up 6 stories with a condo building.
I don't know, I have to think about that. I would say that this group needs to take a very careful look at how the parcels are laid out, so that it allows, so that you end up with something like what you talked about in Lancaster. I'm not opposed to multifamily housing. I think that has worked in a number of locations.
Yeah, I'd say there's a lot of positives, right? It's reinvestment, it's a higher value, so there should be more taxable income from it. The only downside is from a traffic perspective, if there's 100 units, there's only 100 or 200 people coming there every day. So it's not as if you're getting, life coming into the property.
Good point.
So from our perspective, they're gonna buy 200 curtains, and that's it for 20 years.
But on the other hand, in situations where they've been positioned at the perimeter of the,
Yeah.
and talk about some of the free properties.
Yeah,
I think that can work.
yeah, if they
And they
can,
have to provide us the
Like
parking.
the former Providence Town Shopping Center in Collegeville was by Brandolini sold. And
Yeah.
as a business owner in there, it was horribly managed. But the development outside of it, and it's not high rises, it's more condo,
mhm,
freestanding condo, row home style. That's been put in there, and I think the center's doing a lot better. But they have the movie theater, the golf, the Dick's Sport, big anchors, Best Buy.
Yeah.
But then the little town center.
so in our world, we call it, master planning, sometimes communities call it that too. It's an absolute, piece of a larger puzzle. In this Berkshire situation, it'd just be hard, because it would just be a piece, it wouldn't be part of the bigger puzzle. So that's kind of the element that's missing.
It sounds like you're up against a problem that nobody else that wants to be in the mall business is trying to accomplish. If you're in the mall business, you wanna make it work. You've tried all these innovative things like Top Golf and you have those lockers that go up 150 feet in the air right
Right.
across the street from the wall at King of Prussia. And they come up with new ideas every day. When they come up with new ideas, because we make more money.
Right.
In your case, they'll sit there forever. They're not
Correct.
going to knock on anybody's door to put anything on that lot.
Right.
And if it is anything, they're only looking at it not from the standpoint of how will it fit into the community. It's like how much money will it pay us and how fast and quick can we get out of here.
It's 100% right.
Yeah, you're right, and the master planning is right. Where we see it succeed is when somebody comes in with a master plan and then makes it happen, and with money.
So this isn't a question for Boscov, this is just
Yeah.
sort of 1,000 feet what you see from your knowledge. If they sell off parcels, if they're selling off 2, 3, whatever parcels, does that now kick the
Yes.
2.5 years into it, that now kicks it down to 12.5 years that we have, we have add another 2 years to it. So the reality is not you,
The industry.
the industry is, what we're doing is kicking the can down the road. By the more parcels they sell, you're kicking the can down the road on the
Capitalizing that.
development.
Yeah.
Increasing their revenue.
So when you asked about the crystal ball, at least for this property, the enclosed mall portion. I got nothing. The enclosed mall portion, and if this, kicking the can down the road happens, will be the absolute last thing to ever get addressed. because it is the least desirable, and therefore there won't be those phone calls of we wanna buy this. So slowly but surely, I would, crystal ball it. Everything around it may or may not happen, but at some point we'll get a phone call. The hardest thing I've seen, I talked to Namdar about this, is that almost solidifies that as never being, trying for redevelopment, because once it's landlocked,
Right.
there's not a lot you can do with it.
It's basically junk.
Right,
So,
but if you
and
junk,
will-
you can't
and will-
access.
And will they ever knock it down? So, what's the name of the guy in Fairgrounds?
Whole properties.
Jim Hall.
Yeah.
Very decent guy. Bought it, didn't really have great plans, kept a couple of the anchors, knocked them all down, planted grass, maintains it, it's fine. And somebody at some point, either will come to him with ideas, or he'll develop some ideas, and that will get redeveloped. In the meantime, no harm, no foul.
You see, that's what I was hoping was gonna be the encouragement that, and I believe the last time you were here, Jacob, I may have mentioned it, that I'm just surprised Mall isn't taking a more stance. Now, you've given me some more insight today as to why, but with the Berkshire Mall just being the last shopping mall around here, you would think, let's jump at the chance, we don't have competition, let's get this place to where it used to be. But that's not their concept.
Well, I think that if somebody comes with a big idea and a big plan and wants to buy the whole thing, they have to be able to achieve an agreement and buy it at a reasonable price. It may be the current owners, that may not work for the current owners, and that selling off piecemeal could be more lucrative than trying to make a deal for the whole thing.
I was told somebody made Namdar an offer within the past 6 months of 36 million, and they
Right.
countered with 75.
Yeah.
It's 75.
That's what we heard. Well, so that kind of lets you know what they're, what they want to do. And again, I would say our goal is to work with them as long as they're our landlords.
I mean, we're glad that you're here, because you guys are surviving in the land of misery when it comes to retail. There's no stores to buy anything from here, even the shops are going the other way. So as long as you guys can keep doing what you're doing, we just hope they don't build like huts around the building and sell them off piecemeal, so you have one access.
We can work together on that.
Yeah, yeah. Fortunately, you control the parking lot.
Yeah.
Does anybody have
Do you
anything
have
else?
control over the parking lot at the other end, or is it just, you have the control over the?
Yeah, most of these
entire-
leases are pretty simple, just, here's the ring road, everything inside of it, all the different anchors, had to provide consent to. But now that Sears has disappeared in Bonton, we would still need a Boscov's consent. But from Allied's perspective, they were one of the owners that would redevelop. But one of the challenges they had is they would have to get Sears to approve it, then Bonton to approve it, and then us. Sears was heading toward bankruptcy, so there's no reason for them to work with anyone, they just wanted to extract money. Bonton was heading toward bankruptcy, they had the same situation, but unfortunately, by the time those two went bankrupt, the debt came due and, they lost the
And
money.
Namdar bought the note.
Right, so Namdar had bought the debt from Allied, so it kind of eliminated any chance of Allied keeping it.
Well, with the exception of the shops that went missing, which has some other challenges in terms of how do we get there? Our other shopping centers seem to be vibrant.
Yeah.
Why missing?
Yeah, they're great. I mean, Allied still owns, what do we call it?
Berkshire Mall West.
Yeah, Berkshire Mall West, where they have the Burlington, the DSW, and that's absolutely what is, kind of the prime asset format right now. Big parking lot, front door entrance. So Broadcasting Square and that shopping center are absolutely ideal. The shops, I don't know, it'll be interesting. It'll need to evolve, but it's a more appetizing asset to redevelop, just because it's pretty simple. It's an open parking field, there's a lot of flexibility of what you can do with it, so it'll probably evolve, but it shouldn't have the negative impact that the Berkshire Mall has been struggling through.
You talked about the master plan. I was fortunate to see the original master plan when Murray Goodman first bought the mall, or built it. And there's a monorail system that went from the mall, went over the bypass to, what's the the old construction fasteners, I guess he was gonna do something over there. And it was a big circle, it went then to the Sheridan, and then Mall West, and then came back, it was just a big, it was pretty cool, pretty advanced.
He was a dreamer.
Yeah.
But you need dreamers.
He must have taken his grandkids to Disney.
Monorail.
Does anybody have anything else for these gentlemen? All right,
Thank you.
we sure appreciate your stopping by, and you have an open invitation to come anytime, but don't be too shocked when we call you as well. We want to stay very much involved. I'm very well aware of the old joke about we're from the government, we're here to help, but we are. And I think we can back that up.
And we see that every day, so we're grateful for what you're doing. As you're talking to two pretty happy residents of Warren, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
do I get to keep this?
I don't know.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Two of them have already relocated elsewhere. Well, two of who the four tenants were supposed to be are already somewhere else.
Wait, you put one in?
Going to, old Hazelbrook Mountain by the ski lift.
Yeah, go.
And just run that little run, just right over.
Sorry?
Be careful, one time, as a joke, I said to, after we bought our house, I said to George Coates, because he had just bought a gondola. One of the, isn't that what they call the things that they're skiing? Yeah, and, why he bought it, he has no idea, but I said, well, then we're gonna, let's put that across the swale. Somebody over there was talking about this, and I got a call from Dave Bowers. Can't do that. Well, I heard you and Combs are gonna put a
They might really go there, so we should. A boardwalk.
They might be the largest landowner in New York, one of the largest. They're definitely one of the largest in the city.
The mall's out.
Depends on what it is.
Somebody asked me if you bought the Wells Fargo building because they had the same.
Coats?
I was surprised, I wouldn't guess either.
That's both.
Just try getting the
There's a
colors.
large
I think they
acidic
did a good
village
job.
Yeah.
in Miami as well.
My color's
Down
actually
there, I
called
was like,
caviar. Yeah, it's
It's like
caviar.
maybe
Is that
100%
intentional?
humidity.
All my restaurants, I actually use food-based colors.
Was that intentional on his part to try to manage something?
Jim and I talked, and he's like, what color do you think? I said, no, I like dark colors, depending on the use. Do a bright breakfast type place, and bright colors.
Yeah, right.
Dinner restaurants.
Does anybody have any, old business to bring up today? Any other updates, Michelle, on things around town? The hotel,
Currently still under renovations with multiple active building permits. So I did have to remind them to cut the grass 2 weeks ago.
Are you talking about the motor inn now, or are you talking about
Radisson, Crown Plaza,
Crown Plaza?
Sheridan. Pick
Sheridan.
the version of the hotel that it was.
Do we know a flag that's gonna fly,
My understanding it's gonna open back up under the Radisson.
and as it was just brought up a second ago, the, Inn at Reading,
Motel 6 is open,
oh, it is open?
yes.
are they keeping the lights on?
How about the shops at Viva?
That'll attract real quality.
Yeah, in fact, Sola should be opening within the next couple of weeks.
Looks great.
Yeah.
Do we know the restaurants yet?
Felino is actually doing two between the winery and they're also doing a lunch spot that I think they're just gonna call it the Felino Cafe.
What's going into Viva? We know that.
Is that Japanese?
I was told that was one of the options, but they hadn't actually secured the lease.
Okay, I just saw the name on the wall. This on the sign.
That's new.
Was it in Japanese?
KYMA, kind of?
Oh,
They have a
the
place over
Kima out in Ephrata?
222.
No, it's Japanese for a type of cooking. I just Googled it, so I assume. I didn't mean to insult anybody with it, I just Googled the word.
There's chemo at 222.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
that's seafood
what's
and
his name?
steak.
What's that?
It's the one we're talking about is seafood and
Above,
steak.
above Jones.
Yeah, that means wave in Greek, but also, or it's Kina, K-Y-M-A. I can't, I just
Oh.
drove by it and there's something on the big.
Greg Kaplan hasn't said anything.
You can't break things, runner, for heaven's sake.
Oops.
I don't know.
So, anything else, Michelle?
Just cooks for China shop.
That's all I have for now.
When, do they have any when are they gonna reopen at the hotel?
Your guess is as good as mine. They've not said a peep.
And it's still what, a tower and one wing, is that correct?
The way they've presented it so far, the intent is to renovate one wing at a time. So the first wing they're starting on, they're doing the kitchen at the same time, bring that back online, and then continue to renovate the whole hotel.
Difference there.
That's
Crazy.
plaza.
We need
Yes.
another hotel.
Apparently we do.
Yeah.
Are they
There's someone out there.
Are we starting groundbreaking on the apartments?
They don't have land development approval.
Okay.
Aren't some veterans on probation over there?
They still own it, but they're not doing
All right,
that.
in the fact that we have no other old business, is there any new business? If not, we will stand the meeting adjourned.
Sarah.